Hello and welcome back to the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother. And here on the show, we talk to creative entrepreneurs doing amazing things and how their glow up story happened. And today is no different. We have a wonderful guest with us. This woman has been an impeccable person in my life. You're relatively new in my life, but since the day I met you, I feel like so much has changed. So much has transpired. You've inspired me so much with the work that you're doing. And it's an honor to be a collaborator with you and be in a similar space as you and get to work with you all the time. Miss Dele Nguyen.
Thank you for all the nice things.
You're amazing. I'm like
How are you?
so like impressed by you, proud of you, surprised by you. You're constantly inventing.
It's too early for this.
It's true. Okay, so tell your story of how we met because I wonder how similar
Oh
they're.
my gosh. I feel like did we meet online first? I feel like we met. Oh God, now I'm
Like
put on
we were
the
in the
spot.
ethos.
You said what?
We were in each other's ethos, but I don't know if we ever met.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we knew of each other on the internet first. And then I came into Bamboo a couple of times to work with Chrissy
Yeah.
on some projects. And we ran into each other at the front desk a couple of times. And then you literally just reached out and booked a shoot. And then that's just how I recall it. I don't know. I could be way
Mhm.
off. But then after that shoot, it was just history from there.
I know. The way I remember it is when you, Tish, and Jasmine came in.
Okay. Yep.
That's
That's
the part,
fair.
the moment for me that was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
who is this woman? Like we had crossed paths, and
Yep.
then you're telling me about yourself, and I'm like seeing a person, hearing the passion, seeing the page, connecting all the dots, and I was like, who is this girl?
Just
I just
me.
remember sitting in the yellow chairs and being like, I like her.
Yes. I don't know. I think it was our first shoot. I was like, oh yeah, she's cool.
That
It was
shoot?
just like unfiltered and just all self-love, high energy, high vibrations. Easiest shoot ever in my life, still to this day.
I feel the same way about the shoot with you. I've never, and we'll tell everybody what you do, but I have never ever in my life, and I did the math today. I've been modeling for 12 years. Never in my life have I shot with a photographer like you. The way you shoot, the way that you show up, you're just like, okay, let's go. Like your sign up is like, okay, I've worked with a lot of photographers. I love all of them. Most of them, there's love for all people. There's a couple grimy ones out there, but your sign up process, your setup process, the branding of your company, the way you present your photos, all of that experience was like, oh, this is so easy. Oh, this is so easy. And that part was even like impressive from the get go. And I was like, I need to get my shit like hers. Like I need my shit like this, and we need to talk about this. But then I showed up, and I remember that day was like very chaotic for me, like personally. I had a lot of family shit going on, and I was just like, can I just like talk about this with you? Because we were like creating together, and I was like, how
Yeah,
am I supposed to create and
yeah.
model and collaborate with a photographer? Because that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm like constipated with family drama,
Yep.
you know, and you were like, yeah, cool, what's up? And I was like, this, and that. And you're like, actually, I know all about this. So before we get into
Yes.
all of that beautiful stuff that makes us who we are, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay. Um, my name is Dell. Well, Adele, like the singer, I always say. And I go by Dell for short. And I am a photographer and a digital marketing strategist. And I don't usually advertise this, but I'm also a certified life coach. So that's
It makes a lot of
me.
sense.
Yeah. All things media, creative, and then, of course, mental health.
Yes. And now you're dipping your toes into education and
I
workshops.
am. Yes. See, that's relatively new, so I always forget. I'm a workshop facilitator. I'm adding that to my resume. And that is, I was actually thinking about it yesterday, how crazy that is. Like, public speaking does not come naturally to me at all. So I admire you, and you are so inspiring because it is not easy. And I struggle like every single time. I'm like, I got this in the bag. And then I get up in front of the people, and the room was only 14 people. And I'm
That's a
so
lot of people.
nervous. And I start sweating, and my hands get all clammy, and I start stuttering on my words. And I'm like, at what point is this going to get easier? But the educating portion of it does come way more naturally. I dabbled in the education field before photography for a while, and
Hmm,
then all my family is educators.
really?
Yeah.
Isn't your mom like in like government or something like that too?
No, so she has her teaching degree, but then she also right now she's an instructional designer.
Oh,
So she writes training for companies, right? And then my sister is a preschool teacher, and then my uncle, yeah, and then my uncle is a college professor, physics.
okay. So
Yeah.
did you have them evaluate your workshops before you got them going, or were you just like, I got this?
Mm-mm. Girl, with these family dynamics these days, no, stay away from my stuff. Um, no, sometimes I run some things by my mom once in a while, but for the most part, I'm just one of those stubborn people who, when I think of something, I want to do it all me from start to finish.
You're
And
a
then, like,
Taurus,
when I, yeah, yep.
right? Okay.
hmm
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah,
very much
Taurus
like,
moon.
yes, you're able to help me, but no, I don't want it.
Not to your face, at least.
No, exactly. And I will struggle bus it too. And I'll be crashing and burning, and I'll still be like, mm-mm,
I'm
I'm
fine.
good.
That's why I
Yeah,
packed my parachute. Like,
right.
good. But you learn so much that way. And I
Absolutely.
remember when you told me you wanted to start hosting workshops at Bamboo. And I was like, okay, let's go. And you were like, okay.
Right. There was like slight hesitation, but I'm like, what do I gotta lose? And if there's like if I if I wasn't at Bamboo and it wasn't you and it wasn't this community, I would not have. I really wouldn't have. It's really like this, it's just this environment right here. And the timing was perfect. And I was like, okay, let's jump. Let's go.
I'll be honest, that conversation with you was pivotal for me in a couple of ways. So, like, when you reached out, like, you kind of reached out just to like get approval, I feel like, but I feel like it turned into like, okay, so what are we going to do? How are you going to execute it? What's your plan? Like, what's the vision? How many people? What's the cost? And we kind of like broke it down. And I was thinking about it recently because someone asked me, like, how does fashion, like, how does all this fashion stuff like really connect with all the stuff that I'm actually good at? And I've constantly been feeling this like disconnect. Like, who am I? What do I do? Am I a model? Am I in the fashion industry? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really style people. I style myself. I shop
Yep.
for myself. I do a fashion event once a quarter, but it's not about the fashion. And I'm constantly like, why do I feel disconnected? And that conversation, I was like, oh, I could do this in my sleep. I was like, she wants
Mm-hmm.
help building a program or an experience or a workshop. And we were just like, boom, 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 boom. This is how you do it.
Yep.
And then I had another conversation with Kalina from Zero to Where that was very
Okay.
similar to that. And then Angela Bucciolato and Taylor, so a couple other people that were on the show about events and experiences and building a community and bringing people together. And I was like, oh.
That's
But
what ties everything together.
was like the first one that I was like, maybe I should be doing this. So like
Mm,
this week, I think I've come to the realization that the thing that should be my service is teaching, consulting, and hosting people around events, community, and bringing people together. I was like,
absolutely.
duh.
Yes. Yes.
You got to look fly while you're doing it, okay?
Yes. Yes. And I think the fashion part too is like it doesn't necessarily have to be a service. It's just leading by example, right? Like when
Right.
I think of Amanda Sweet, I think of confidence and I think of colorful, right? And so you don't necessarily have to be teaching people or showing people how to shop necessarily, like dressing people from top to bottom. Doesn't have to be like not everything you do has to make money.
Yeah.
Um, And I think that when you're public speaking, you dress up fly, and when you're hosting, like when you're bringing community together at Bamboo, and you're fly, and you're
Mhm.
giving tours, and just like showing up for work every day fly. Like me, you know me, I dress up in athleisure
You're
sweats,
utility
like
based. You're ready for a shoot
right,
at any minute.
exactly,
It's true.
exactly. And so, but like when I think of you, like, you know, you take the time to put the makeup on, and you the earrings, the details, right? Like, oh my gosh, it makes me want to, like, you know, maybe one day I'll wake up and do that myself.
See, but I was thinking about that too, and I was like, where did that come from? And I think about like when my first exposure to events was my mom. My mom like hosted parties at our house all the time. Like when I don't know how many Filipino people you know, but for those of you that are watching that know Filipino people, you know what a Filipino party looks like. And my mom was the one that hosted them. It's karaoke, it's food all over the place, every single room. The guys are in the basement drinking, smoking, doing all that stuff. Kids are running amok, and the women are just having a great time. But my mom was the host of those parties. And so she would clean, clean, clean. And then she would, like, when the party was supposed to start, she would run upstairs and start getting ready. And then we
Mm,
would have to be ready, me and my sister, to
yep.
present the
To
people to the beautiful house that we just cleaned, top to bottom, and all the food that's out there. We're like, come in. And they're like, oh, kissing, kissing, kissing. And we're hosting. And
yep.
my mom would send us up an hour early to get ready. And then she would go up when the party starts. And then all the people are there. And she's walking down the stairs.
Yep, her grand entrance. Like, here's
Oh, hello. All of these
oh,
people that I did
oh,
not expect to
right.
be.
Oh, that food. Oh, it was nothing. It was nothing.
But she's all like in her glam and all dressed up and like refreshed and everything. And like it's an experience for the people. Like, what is she going to be wearing? What time is she coming down in her own house? You know, like, who's going to be there? All that stuff. And then people would also show up that way. So, like, in my
Mhm.
mind, I'm like, you got to be, if
Yep.
it's your event, you got to be
Yep.
peacocking. But
Yep.
I started working in events, everybody's like, you got to hide in the background if you're the event curator. You
Yep.
got to be all black head to toe, nothing wrong with that. But the all black head to toe in order to be hidden,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Not all black head
Yep.
to toe
To
because of the
blend
choice.
to blend in. To blend in. And I
They
do
do that
that. I
with
do
too.
that. Yep, I do that. I do it as a photographer.
Yes.
I do it as an event coordinator. I wear all black, everything, all the time, just to
But
blend
you,
in.
but you know that that's like what they tell you to do. That's like
Hmm.
what we're taught to do as photographers, videographers, event hosts. As a photographer, videographer, I get it because,
Yeah.
whatever. But as an event host, I'm like, you should be like, hi,
Hmm.
I'm the person hosting. If you have any questions, come find me. Like, you should be
Yep.
easily findable, you
Yep.
know? But anyway, that was just a full circle moment for me, that conversation that we had. And it's an honor to see you just like growing and glowing. Like, you're doing it. You're Q2.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
on,
Yes, cute
you have
too.
your fourth workshop this weekend,
Next weekend.
next weekend.
Yes. Yes.
How do you feel? How's that feel?
You know what? It feels good. The first three workshops were like my beta test. That was the first time all of the material was rolled out, so it was all new. It was like the time blocking was all new, the public speaking was all new, the flow of the event was all new, like the working elements, who was helping me do what was on, like everything was all new. So each workshop was a different experience. They didn't all have anything in common, like at all. The first one, the feedback was everything was really great. It was super branded, super impressive. But it was just a lot of information, and maybe just, try to minimize just a little bit of it, right? Completely understood that feedback. It was a lot even for me to like get out.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next one, I felt like it was like that perfect medium. I did it with my co-host Nadia from Nadia and Company, and that just flowed really well,
Yeah.
because we split that in half.
Mm.
And so she talked for a portion, I talked for a portion, and then we came back together and we kind of rounded it all out. So that was really good. And then the last one, because I was so paranoid about the feedback from the first one, it was too short and it wasn't enough information, right? And then, of course, the public speaking, like I said, doesn't come naturally to me. So I stutter on my words still, and I lose my train of thought. So I'm like,
Mm.
um, but I've been practicing, and now that like a lot of the material isn't it's not changing too much. It's
Yeah.
already kind of locked in. The workbooks are made, the presentations are made, maybe a couple tweaks here and there. And the fact that I did them all at least once, now I'm hoping that for Q2 it's a little less scary.
Yeah. But what a great start. And to start is such a big thing. And I want to ask you about that too, because you said you're not a public speaker, but here you are hosting workshops once a quarter and probably launching more. And everything's branded. So, like, I'm curious how you got from I don't like public speaking to being like now I'm in an educator space. Like, what was that?
Um, it's something that I've always wanted to be a public speaker. Like that's always been a goal for me. I've always wanted to, but if I'm being honest, it was a lack of confidence, and I spent a lot of my life with a lack of self-love and just acknowledging of my worth and my value, right? And so that will make you fearful to be in front of other people. And I
Yeah.
think that I've grown a lot internally, and and personally to the point now where it's like I don't care what I don't care if I mess up. I don't care if I fall. I don't care what people think of me. Like I have built enough rapport with everybody in my community where, you know, and all three of my workshops sold out, and every single room was filled with people that I've met at least once or twice, if not, I've known for 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
I've had mentors in the room, my family in the room, I've had close friends in the room. So I think that actually was perfect because for your first round of workshops and just being fearful, I was just looking in the room and I'm like, I know
These are
these
my people.
people. Right,
Yeah.
they see me from the bottom. Like, come on, like. So I think that was really good. But yeah, I was like very fearful at first, just because of just not confident in my abilities. And entrepreneurship, if entrepreneurship has taught me anything, it's that I'm very capable. And I can't do anything if I just put my mind to it and practice. Um, so I just ripped the band-aid off. I don't know if I was necessarily ready, but I was like, it's now or never.
Right.
Get over it.
Just do the
Just do it. Just do
but
it. Get it over with.
it's like, I mean, all of your other skills shined through so much. You're like, okay, I already have the systems. I already know how my program looks. I know my branding. Like when I think of Dell, I think of polished, professional, put together. Like it's when I see you, I'm like, oh, she's got her shit together. It's
Oh
done. And
Lord.
then you
Oh
come and
Lord.
tell me, I was scared or whatever, or I didn't have confidence in myself. So like, where did the confidence come from? Or where is it coming from?
um, I think when I see every other thing that I've put my mind to come into play and actually work when I didn't think it would, it gives me that much more validation of like, okay, you can do this next thing. Okay, you can do this next thing. And I've kind of created like an entrepreneur bucket list of things that I want to accomplish. And that was just one of them. And the timing was perfect. You proposed, hey, we're doing, we need more member programming. And I thought about it for a second and I was like, this has been on my bucket list. And I was like, I'm not ready, but I'm not ready. And then you mentioned it again. And it just kept coming up in conversation. And I'm like, you know what, Dell, if you don't just get it together. And then because I kept saying, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And you were like, well, let's just put it on the calendar. Let's just put it on the calendar. And I was like, oh, but that makes it real. Like, I don't know. But you're absolutely right because everything else that I've done, right? So, um, I took a couple years off, but previously I hosted an event every quarter. It was more like networking events or client appreciation events, but I'd go all out, right? The balloons, the flowers, the branded lanyards, the whatever, whatever. And I would rent the space and it would all be beautifully curated. And I wasn't ready for those either, but I put it on the calendar and I rented the space and then I sent out the invites and then I did the planning and then it all came together because I was like, well, now it has to.
Right.
So I was like, the timing was just too perfect. It just had to be done.
I love it. And I'm so proud of you. You're doing it. It's
Thank
happening.
you.
Like,
Thank you.
okay, I have two things I want to talk about.
Yes,
One,
please.
one, I want to talk about your bucket list because I love this. And then two, I want to talk about the doing it before you're ready. So First,
Yeah.
like, what is this entrepreneurial bucket list? Because you're the first person I've ever heard say that.
Yes. Um, my entrepreneur bucket list is just a bunch of things that I'm like always seeing future Dell doing, but live in fear currently, or just not ready, or don't feel like I have the experience or the resume to do it. Um, and I'm honest, I'm like, I can't even tell you what's in my future bucket list because I've been making like so much progress and like knocking things off my list that they're like kind of like going. Because one of them was being more so as a photographer, I'm, behind the lens, I'm in the field, I'm doing all these things. One of my goals was because I love branding so much for myself and I love seeing my photos being used for branding, startups and everything. I was like, I really want to be more present on the back end and I want to help people develop strategy for their brand more and be there for that part of the journey
Yeah.
for my clients. And so that was on my bucket list and I'm currently doing that. I'm, call myself a digital marketing strategist now. And so that's really
It's
exciting.
true.
Right. And so, like, consultation calls and going through brand aesthetic and just walking people through like the basics of branding and building brand trust is really fun. So we can mark that off the list. And then the public speaking and the educating, that was one of them. I really, 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 really wanted to be um and I guess this is still kind of like it could still be rounded out on my bucket list is a woman in tech um who
How are
gets,
you not that? How are
pardon?
you not that?
Well, okay, I am that, but
Really?
like a woman in tech like who has such a high um value of like to the point of being asked to public speak or go to conferences
I
and
feel like
things
you're
like
like
that.
already there. I feel like you're already there. You just have to believe that you're there. Like when I think of your platforms, like you don't have a mobile app yet, right?
Yet, but
Okay, you're like minutes away from that. I'm sure. Like minutes away. But like I remember hearing you say like I'm not really in tech. Okay, you use a digital camera, like a tool, an electronic technical tool every single day and you're using technical platforms for your signups, your sign-ons, your branding. You're using it for your editing. You're using it for your output. You're using it for your workshops. Like how are you not in tech?
no, you're absolutely right. I think I so one another thing about entrepreneurship and just being in the creative field in general, I was thinking about this earlier this morning, is that there's no guideline and there's no like job description necessarily. You are what you say you are. And I remember the first client I worked for, one of the first big clients that I worked for, called herself something that I'd never heard of before. And it sounded like she made it up. And she told me she made it up. But everybody has such high regards for that. Yeah, and you did it too, right? And so it's like we are what we say we are, and there's no wrong answers. And I feel like coming from, the 9 to 5 world and being told you're this and you're getting paid for this and this is your job description and this is you went to school for this or you didn't go to school for this, so that's what you are or you aren't. And
Right.
so when I entered entrepreneurship and I realized like, no, I am a digital marketing strategist because I literally do that for my clients already. I just don't call myself that.
Right.
And I am a public speaker because I offer workshops. Even though I'm new, I can still call myself
You
that.
posted 3. You're on your 4th. And this is not the first iteration of that. So yes, you get to call yourself yes. I'm sorry.
So, no, you're good. That's just, there's no rules
Yeah.
to any of it. And I think that's where people are like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. Or they start, being fearful or self doubting or imposter syndrome because it's like, you mean the world is really my oyster? Like, I can do anything?
But also, like, I don't like oysters. So is the world my
Yeah,
like buffet? Can it be
right.
something that I like? Because I think that there's a lot of narrative out there, especially like on social media, about how entrepreneurship is done. And there's a
Mm,
lot of creators and thought leaders that say like you must, and that's like a marketing tactic, like you should, you do, be this, don't do that, never do this, like all the big red X's and stuff like that. And I feel like that's just for the views. But the reality is, like, there is no rules. They're just making that up too. Like,
Yep.
everybody's just making
Everybody is making everything up.
everything's
Shoot.
like, nobody fucking knows anything.
Okay.
Like, you know, and I mean that in the most loving way. Like, we don't know it. Like you said, if they're an authority, it's because they're calling themselves the authority on the thing. And then it just caught on. Like, you know, when somebody says, like, I would like you to come to speak for a conference, what are your titles? What's your bio? Amanda Sweeten's authority on, and I can just set that in, and they'll just put it in the program book, and they'll just announce that. And then now that's who I am, like you say. And so I can change it literally every single time if I want to until it feels right. And it'll feel, and I was talking to somebody else about this, like, it'll feel right for a little while, and then it won't, and then you'll change it.
Yep. And I think that that's the beautiful part of entrepreneurship. At first, it was confusing. It was scary, right? It's like, okay, well, if there's no rules and there's no guidelines, like, where do I go? But once you like get in the groove of things and you realize that you can, change who you are and what you do frequently, you can, change your title, you can, literally do whatever you want. That really healed my inner child because my whole life I struggled with identity, right? And like when you grow up, when you're in your teens or when, you're going through your young life crisis and, for me, I'm adopted. So I just always struggled with identity. And then when entrepreneurship came along, I was like, it was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, okay, I can breathe. I can literally be whatever I want. I have permission to be whatever I want.
Okay. What was like, what was that like? Like, I don't know. I know some adopted people. I don't know many. And I feel like you're the only person that I know of, like, that we've talked about it, where you're adopted and an entrepreneur. And so, like,
Yes.
let's talk about how those worlds collide a little bit.
Yes. Okay. So they're both unconventional, really. I mean, entrepreneurship is starting to be very much more so conventional. Like it's the new norm. But when I first started, and I was kind of getting into it 8 years ago, it wasn't conventional. And so it was me once again going against the grain. As a lot of things growing up, I was homeschooled and I was raised Unitarian Universalist. So it's just like a bunch of different things. And so
Oh my gosh.
I know it was a lot. So entrepreneurship, okay. I don't know. I'm having a hard time answering this question.
You're good.
There,
Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing, because I feel like
yeah.
I don't get to have conversations like this a lot with people who I know are adopted. There was one of my sister queens. Oh, you got to stand up and do the thing.
Right. I don't know if it will. I might have to go over this line. You can still see me though, right?
It looks great, actually.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
Kind of
like I'm a little like, yeah. It's romantic.
I know. It's like highlighting you. But yeah, let's talk about your identity. I remember one of our first conversations, like, at the front desk was about your Asian identity. And you had mentioned, like, you don't really have that many Asian friends. And I was like, what about me?
Yeah, my first, honestly. Yeah, growing up was crazy. We were in public school, so I was raised in Redford. I was adopted from Vietnam. I came here at 4 months old. I was raised in Redford, Michigan. And my sister and I were in elementary school until third grade.
Okay.
And my sister's hearing impaired, and I struggled with dyslexia, and I was also getting bullied. So my mom decided to just pull us both out of school and homeschool us. And my mom is a single mom, so props to her. So she was working and homeschooling us, and it was hard. It was hard for all of us. And I think my narrative my whole life was it was hard for me. But it was hard for all of us because being, yeah, it was it was hard on my mom. I can't imagine. I was very difficult to teach. And then just being at home with your family all the time. And then going to all the extracurriculars and all the sports. Going to co-ops, which is like school for homeschoolers. Make it make sense. I don't know. But basically all the homeschoolers would get together at a church and then take classes with each other.
Like
Okay.
school.
Like school. like school, Amanda. And so that whole period of time, I was homeschooled until I graduated high school. That whole
Really?
period, yes. So whole time was so confusing for me because all my friends from elementary school were, going to prom and football games and having boyfriends and girlfriends and, hanging out. And I just remember like the neighbor kids were all still going to school together and they were like hanging out without me because I wasn't there anymore. Like I was so far gone that and isolated that I just wasn't a part of the things anymore.
Yeah.
Um and my mom is white, by the way. That might help for some context. And we were raised Unitarian Universalist, which is an amazing community, and that is something that I really appreciated growing up. Was
Can you
a,
tell us a
a
little bit about that? Like, I've never heard all of those words
Yes,
together.
yes. So no, for real. So Unitarian Universalist is a non-denominational church, and I always call it the hippie church.
Okay.
Very, very liberal congregation. Everybody believes something a little bit different, and we all live by seven principles. And they're all basic things like treat others the way you want to be treated, respect the web of life. Like it's just all very, very generic rules to live by. And then the sermons are topics like um, some of them are political. My mom talks about women's reproductive rights at least once a quarter to the congregation. Um, they talk about forgiveness and, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then so I was high school youth group leader for that. And I was in charge of all the event coordinating at church when I was there.
Makes
And so I was,
sense.
yeah, Claire was in the nursery. My sister was in the nursery. My mom was on the religious education board. The social justice committee was doing all the sermons. So
Wow.
we were very, very involved.
Yeah.
And then as I got to adulthood, I still appreciated the people for who they were. I appreciated the work that they were doing, but the
Mhm.
congregation still wasn't as diverse as it needed to be.
Yeah.
Um, our church is very prideful on being inclusive and welcoming LGBTQ community, all races, all shapes and sizes. And I still felt like Claire and I, as we were in all the other things in our lives, were the only representation of any kind of diversity. And so it was like when you hit a certain point in your life and you're searching for more, and you grow, and then you search for more, and then you grow and you search for more, you're constantly going from um, different groups of people, different spaces, and so I haven't really been back in a while,
Yeah.
but my mom is still really active, and we still hear from people once in a while.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
want to touch on that because so my mom is Filipino and my dad
Mm-hmm.
is a white American Jewish man. So we were raised Jewish,
Okay.
like religiously and culturally. And we're also Filipino. And so like my Lola, my mom's parents moved in with us when we were very young. So Filipino food, culture, the language, all of that stuff. And then we're going to shul, temple, and services every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then when we got to high school, it was like every Monday. And then I think middle school was like Tuesdays. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like 2-3 times a week, if not more than that, that we're really involved in this like Jewish community. And my grandparents, my Bubby and my Zadie were very involved. And I look like this. Like I don't look
Mm-hmm.
Jewish. And I also don't really look Filipino. And so
Yep.
like both
Oof.
communities, like I was just kind of like, I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here. And you're also making me feel like I don't belong here, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're young, like kids say stupid shit. Kids say
Yep.
stupid shit. They do stupid shit. And it's like not just my face, but also like my body shape is different than both of those communities. Like stereotypically very like thin and small on the Filipino side. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the Jewish side, either like thin and small or round and plump. And just
Yep.
not necessarily like, you don't think like super like, I don't know, the way my body looks when you think of Jewish women.
Absolutely.
So like it always felt very alienating. And as an adult looking back on it, like as a like adolescent, I was like, I don't fit in here, I don't fit in anywhere, blah, 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 rebelled against all of those communities. But now I'm like, oh, I just needed to be the representation of that and like embrace that for them and like embrace them and teach them. But I, as an adult now, I'm kind of like, where are all my outsiders? Where are all my
Yeah.
mixed babies,
No,
my
for real.
non-identified babies? Like, come with me. Come
Yep.
with me.
Absolutely. And you become the space that you wish you had.
Yes.
You become the person you wish you had when you were little. So, absolutely. I know.
What was that
Crying.
like for you? Like being an adopted person, being of
And
Asian descent with a white parent in a predominantly white or black spaces, because I know it's
mhm.
like kind of polarizing a little bit in the areas that we live in. Like in Metro Detroit, I feel like it's very like compartmentalized. Like the black people are here, the white people are here, the Middle Eastern people are here, the Asian people are
Mhm.
here, the Jewish people are here, the Polish
Yeah,
people are there. Like it's very like we have all of it, but they're all in pockets, right?
absolutely. And it's hard. They're cliques, and it's hard to wiggle into cliques, as we all know. So, um, I don't fit in with any kind of Asian, like um, like adopted Asians. I don't connect with, surprisingly.
Really.
Um, Raised by Asian parents, I don't really connect with because the culture and everything, I just don't know anything. Like,
Yeah.
I can't connect with you. I don't understand. Um, I have gone through a lot of emotional back and forth with the family I was adopted into, right? My mom and my sister were all locked in, but my extended family, I battle with um, the dynamic of that. To me, that they're my representation of white people. I was raised alongside of them or by them.
Mm-hmm.
And as I grew older, I struggled more with the idea that this is like, when people are like, that's some white people shit. And as I got older, the more I kept saying that, like, that's some white people shit. And I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I connect with that. I don't know if I resonate with that. I don't know if I can agree with that, get with that.
No. Yep.
And it just separated me. The older I got, it separated me further and further and further from not just my family, but white people in general. And then, you start to generalize things and you start to just think, well, blah, 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 blah. So I still have to actively catch myself when I'm doing that and be like, okay, not all white people, relax. Chad is cool.
We love Chad. Have us
Abby's
on
cool. We love Abby. And then I also have to think, I was like, but my mom is cool as hell.
Yeah.
And just like you wouldn't generalize any other race, sometimes I have to catch myself and be like, okay, well, not all white people shit is white people shit. So let's
Right.
calm down a little bit, not too much. But yeah, there's a disconnect between the Asian community and the white community, and those are really the only two options that I have.
Right.
And so I naturally gravitate towards other black and brown people because um it's an unspoken understanding. You can resonate, you can just relate to more things. You
Yeah.
can have, in those spaces, I do have more privilege. So I have an opportunity to be the compassionate person. And like I said, be the person for others that I wish I had, be that safe space. And, you know, so I eventually found my village,
Yeah.
and it's pretty diverse this point in life. But it's not easy.
It's not. It's not. And I like coming from like the mixed kid perspective, like I have a lot of the similar feelings about my extended family. Like I don't, you know, I was talking to Labrie, my husband, about this like recently because we were going like we were figuring out where to go to Easter. Like my family doesn't celebrate Easter, but that just because my family doesn't celebrate Easter doesn't mean we always didn't get together on Easter because that was the only holidays we all had off
Yeah.
together. But, I had to have that conversation. Like, he's like, well, you get to see your family all the time. And like, I don't get to see my this part of my family until the holidays. I was like, well, that's your choice, but this family is all I got. I don't got anybody else. Like the core unit of my family is the family that I have. And my extended family is my friends, because like, you know, on my dad's side of the family, like we were always alienated. You know my mom's story, but some people don't. My mom's a survivor of human trafficking. So like when my parents got together, the narrative was she just wants her green card. She just wants to stay here. She doesn't actually love him. She's gonna this, she's gonna that. And there's a lot of our family that still believes that to this day. And they've been married for 35 years. Like
Wow.
they love each other, but we're like, we muddied up the bloodline. We
Yeah.
dirtied up the family. We, you know, like we are we don't look like the rest of that side of the family. And Facebook comes out and people say things on Facebook that cannot be unsaid or unseen. And like when all of this stuff with like George Floyd was happening in the pandemic and all of those like race relations were really high and people were just saying stupid shit with unfiltered. And I'm like, I'm married to a Black man, okay? And I'm like, and if you're saying this about his community, what are you saying about me? What do you think about me? I've ruined your family, you know? And it's like, I can't just go see these people at family reunion and play nice. Like,
Exactly.
no.
Exactly.
And then on the Filipino side, it's like they look at us and think like we're rich, we're millionaires. And I'm like, Mama had to go through trauma to get here. She's worked her ass off to get here. But there's like this narrative, and a lot of Filipino people, like American Filipino people that I know, their parents are dealing with this, like their Filipino family that's still in the Philippines thinks that they're rich and money falls from the sky. And they're constantly asking for money, like,
wow.
like a lot of money. And then there's all of this expectation. There's a part of the culture where it's like you have to take care of your family. And so, you know, I saw my Lolo do this. He worked until he got cancer and passed away. Like he was working nights, he was working weekends and sending his whole check back home. His whole check. And I see my mom starting to do stuff like that. And I'm like, this is not acceptable. Like you need to eat too. You need to be comfortable too. You're getting older. Your kids are finally out of the house, you know? So it's like that part. I'm also like, if you're just gonna like literally like cut your arms off for them, like who are we doing this for? So like both of those sides of my family, I'm just kind of like,
like can't relate. Like
you don't care how we're doing. You don't care about what like how we feel about what the stupid shit that you say and believe and the narrative that you live in, and then the request for gimme all the time, you know. But my mom's like, well, that was my dad's dying wish for me to take care of his nine children who are in their 50s with children and grandchildren. But, you know.
Yeah. Right. Woosah.
But it's like, how am I supposed to, like, that's not.
Well, and you're actively by not understanding that, and by you're breaking generational like habits, right? Because I mean, she's just doing what she was taught or what she thought was right from when she was growing up, and you've grown up with a different perspective of like, okay, well, that's a little, let's not do that.
We're gonna have to set boundaries here, and like we're gonna have to like create better, healthy internal habits, and be more accepting of other people, and like be open to the narrative that people are different, are good, that difference is good, and not knowing things is good, and learning new things is also good, and you know, giving stuff away. Like I don't talk about this enough, but like one of the reasons why I started the revamped clothing swaps is because like I see that I hold on to material items like emotional things. And I see my mom doing that, and I see other Filipino women doing that, and other people who are affected by trauma. And, you know, this kind of like hoarding mentality, like I need to keep these things like loved ones, you know. And so those, like the generational curse thing, we stop in a lot of stuff. I tell Allie, a team member at Bamboo, for those of you that don't know, I tell everybody that sits at the front desk, generational curses stop here at the front desk.
Yep.
They can go back.
Absolutely. And I think that every family, because not everybody has the awareness to do that work and to step up to the plate and be that person and to lead that, especially if you have siblings. And for me, that's me. And it sounds like for you, that's you. But my sister is not too far behind me, and I'm happy about that. But the work has to be done. And so I can relate to my mom and my sister are hoarders due to trauma as well. So my sister is adopted at 5 years, so she remembers more. Um, and one of her things is like just not letting go of things,
Yeah.
and she's able to let go of people, which is a whole nother thing. Like she's
Interesting.
almost disassociative with people,
Yeah.
unless it's like her family, like me and my mom. But like friends can come and go, and she doesn't care. But things, like she could have a mug from when we were like 3 years old and we went to like some type of fairground or something. Like she has pieces of clothing that doesn't fit anymore. She has, her whole room like filled up to the brim with just things.
Yes.
And my mom is the same way, right? And she has things here and things here, and like everything's just in stacks in the house. And it's like, oh my God. And I am attached to people, not things.
Okay.
So they're attached to things, not people, and I'm attached to people, not things. And so it's very interesting. I'm always the one with like the clean spaces, very minimal everything. Every 3 months, I throw shit out. And they're like, why do you throw everything out? You just
Yeah.
throw everything out and you're wasting money and you don't care about anything and you're just so
Aw.
wasteful. And I'm like, but if I haven't used it in a year, why do I need it?
Taking up space.
Why do I
But like
need it?
you said something about like being the person in your family to break generational curses. And it made me think, because I have 3 siblings, um, it made me think like everybody's generational curses are different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got a different version of my parents than my other siblings did. And
Mm.
the version of my parents that I got and the version of me that they got was the version that we needed as a unit of 3, not a unit of 6. Like I was the daughter that they needed to have.
Okay.
And sometimes my mom would say like just too much.
Yeah.
But like, and so that like me being who I am just innately as a human created a different life experience and brought up different generational
Actually,
curses that I
you're
need to
the
break.
you're the oldest?
I'm the oldest girl. So I have an older
Oldest
brother,
girl.
then there's me, then a younger brother, then a younger sister. So I like to say I'm the oldest because I'm the first girl.
Okay. And I feel like the kid with the oldest kid, like, is like the one that gets the most of like the negative like things that get passed on.
Mhm.
And they get like the butt of everything. And so that's what makes you want to be the change maker. Because my sister is technically older than me,
Yeah.
but she didn't she didn't receive what I received. And
Right.
so in her mind, she doesn't, need to heal or break any trauma. And in my mind, I'm like, oh no, we got work to do. We're going to therapy. We need this, 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 and this. This is
Yes.
ridiculous. All this shit got to change. And my mom's just sitting there like, I'm just the worst ever. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I understand you broke your own generational traumas to get us here, but you also might have sprinkled a little bit over here. And I just feel like we might
Unbeknownst.
need to reverse that a little bit for the
Yes.
next generation. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, each sibling gets treated differently. And has different experiences with trauma. And my mom is a testament to that too. She was the oldest of her family,
Mm.
and she said she got the worst of it, and that
Yeah.
her siblings didn't get any of it.
Yeah.
And still to this day, that is a barrier in their sibling dynamic, because she got treated like shit and none of the rest did. And so now it's like, it's going to keep repeating itself, and it's our job to take that trauma, flip it, and reverse it.
Amen. I feel like my older brother got the most immature version of my parents. They were first time parents,
Mm.
you
Mhm,
know?
mhm.
And then, as the second child, I get a different experience. But as the first daughter, I feel like my experience was different, as in like my mom would say stuff to me like this all the time. Like, that's why I had you kids, to take care of each other. Well,
Mm,
I was the one cooking. I was the one cleaning. I
mm.
was the one that's dealing, like helping with the like parent to child relations. You
Yep.
know, it's not, it's like, and like every time we had a party, for example, and this is some trauma I'm working through, like my mom would like rage clean, like
Mm.
clean. And it wasn't until recently that I realized, like, oh, like her rage cleaning is taught to her. Like that was taught to her because she was an indentured servant. And that was her job as a slave to clean
Yep.
and caretake. That was her job. And she
Yep.
got very she was very lucky in the sense that she didn't get put into sex trafficking. And that's something that she says all the time. She was like, that's the one thing I had. The one thing I had and the power that I had was my virginity. And so that also was like taught to me, like, you got to keep your virginity until you, like, the sex talk was, you stay a virgin until you get married and then you be a hoe for your husband. And that was it.
Yeah.
I was like, what does that even mean?
What do I do with that?
What do I do with that information? And like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, men are on a pedestal. And like, sexuality is the gift that I give to them that they deserve. You know, like, low self-worth and low self-esteem, self-hatred. And so I found myself in abusive relationships. I took advantage of my body and only cared about what I looked like and what I gave to them and how often we had sex and all of that stupid shit, you know? But I'm like, oh, wait, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, and this was all just vacuuming the living room. I'm like,
yeah, right. Absolutely. And I think that too, like, as women, there more is expected from us, right? The cooking, the cleaning, the hosting, the greeting, the just being always put together and blah, blah, blah. And for men, it's like, okay, we teach them to like open the doors and be gentlemen and, you know, eventually maybe find like being smart with finances and things like that. And so like when you are the first daughter, it's like more, even if you're not the firstborn, more is still expected of you, right? More is because we wouldn't expect the brother to change the diapers and to cook and clean, right?
Yep.
But like we expect you to do that. And so then you became mama number 2.
Literally. Yep. And it's like, you know, all of like, that's a whole different trope. That's a whole different slew of experiences that I had, you know, and then like talking to my sister and I are really close. She's the baby, you know, and her experience is so different than mine, but she also has all of the trauma that I gave her because before I was healing, before I've been working through the shit that I had to work through, like she had to live with me. She had to share a room with me. So she's cleaning up, like when I was in abusive relationships, especially in high school, that's when we lived together. Like we lived together my whole life and then college I moved out. But my first abusive relationship, I was living at home. And I would just buy clothes, never wash them, but buy them and just buy more instead of washing them. Like, I don't know where that came from, but when I say like mountains of clothes, I mean like you're literally like you can't see the floor, you're walking on mountains. And that's who my sister had to live with in a little bunk bed room. We had bunk beds and it's covered in my shit. And she's constantly cleaning it. And then I'm screaming at her and yelling at her because she's cleaning it or she's not cleaning it or whatever the case may be. And so like, she's got to work through the trauma that I gave her. You know? And like, I think this year I said something about it and I was like, you know, like, I just want to talk about that. I just want to like open up the floor for that conversation to happen and apologize for all of the shit that I did to you.
Yeah, I know.
But you know,
no, I'm listening to you, and it's crazy because just like we're talking about parents passing on, you know, generational, you know, habits and curses, we do it within siblings too. And I've done a big one on my sister, and every day I see it, and like you were just about to tear up, I want to tear up too because I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I was just a kid. A kid, but I was taking the hurt that my mom was giving me. However, I was internalizing that, and then I was shooting it back out at her. And again, my sister's older than me, but in our family, the dynamic was that for most of our childhood, I was the oldest. And she just, you know, more recently in the last couple of years has filled her big sister role, and we're kind of finally fulfilling both of our childhood needs in that way. But when I was the oldest, you know, I would get bullied at school, and then I'd come home and I'd bully her because, you know, I'd be getting bullied on her behalf anyway. Like I was getting bullied on her behalf. Like, you know, it would always be like, you guys are adopted, or it'd be like, why is your sister here in the park? Why is she in the special classroom? And so then I come home and I would take that anger out because I just endured that all day. I couldn't fit in. I didn't have any friends. I was just being picked on, like this, and this. And then I come home and my mom would nitpick me. And then I'd turn around and I'd nitpick Claire. And I nitpicked her so bad to this day. And, you know, not to put her business out here, I don't think she would mind, because we've talked about this in length now, is that like we've been able to have transparent conversations, and I've had to apologize again. And I'm really glad that we're able to apologize to our siblings, because I've had to apologize for turning her into the person she is today, which isn't bad, but she's very indecisive. She's very indecisive, and she's not confident in her decisions, and not confident in, you know, taking risk or being her true self and really finding her own identity. And it's because I nitpicked her to death, to the point where now she feels like she can't do anything right. And I'm like, I
But
did that. My mom didn't do that. You said what?
you can't blame your unhealed self. I mean, you can apologize. You can do your absolute best to heal that part of yourself so that the future relationship that you guys have does not look like that. But like, whatever experience that was had was the experience that was had. And you can't like walk around with that cloud being like, I fucked her up.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you're just a product of your environment as well.
Yep.
You know? And look at what you're doing now to fix it.
Yeah.
Because now you are a product of the environment that you're creating, which is so much more healthy and healed and focused on growth, you know?
It is. It is. And I can really appreciate that I'm starting, because we're not a very emotional family. And that was one of our big things, right? And now I'm able to, like, Claire and I will go out to dinner, and we'll have like really deep conversations, and she'll tell me about her feelings. And she'll tell me when she's, you know, not sure of herself, or what should she do at work for this, you know, towards this person. And we'll have actual conversation, instead of me responding how I used to, like picking on her, like nitpicking, like, well, why did you do this? Or you should have done this, or, you know, you have to be careful with what you say. Now it's more so like, I'm really sorry that that's how you feel. And, you know, what do you want to do in your heart versus what you think you should? And then we're able to like break things down and actually have a conversation, which we've never really been able to do in the past. So healing is a beautiful thing.
Healing is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I see it in you. I see it in you every time I speak to you. Like every time we talk, you're like, I'm working on this. I figured this out. Or this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm working. This is what I'm talking to my mentor about. This is what I'm teaching. And I'm like, if you are constantly like trying, like know that you are a good person, no matter like the stupid shit that you did in the past. And that's a big thing for me. Like I'm still working through like not seeing myself as like the fuck up kid that was like on drug and alcohol probation at 12 years old. The one, you know, I'm trying not to see myself as that person. Like that person is in me.
Yep.
But that's not who I am. I'm not defined by like the person that was like screaming at my little sister or fighting with my brothers or in abusive relationships that went both ways, you know? And so like you should be so proud of where you are, of where you're going, of the trajectory of what you've done. Cause I see it. I see it all over you.
Thank you.
Ah, Del.
I know. Emotional.
I love you. I'm so proud of
you. Thank you. Likewise.
We are at an hour. That happened so
It did. And we could probably go for another 3.
I know. We could go all day. I know we could. But I'm proud of you. Like you're checking off all the things on your bucket list, and the bucket list is gonna grow because you're growing.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me a space and a safe space to talk about things. And then Bamboo, and just making me feel welcome. Like Bamboo has changed my life, my career, and just being an inspiration and being bright and colorful, because I know one day I'll be able to show up just as bright and colorful.
Oh no, you're gonna show up just the way you need to, which is fire. Just know that. Okay, so I have 2 more questions for you. This question I ask everyone: what's your last piece of advice for the people listening out there, whether it be like entrepreneurs, adopted kids? We're gonna wait till Breezy stops blowing his nose.
Hey, all right. Look, you gotta do what you
gotta do. So give us one piece of advice that you want to leave us with.
Oh God, Amanda.
Whatever you want.
So much. Okay. Just on the topic of what we're talking about, or what we just talked about, is, you know, I'm assuming that a lot of your audience are entrepreneurs. You said creative entrepreneurs at the beginning. Is allowing your entrepreneurial path to also lead you into personal development as well. Because as you develop your brand, like you don't have to develop yourself first in order to develop a brand. In fact, for me, it was vice versa. So as I was developing my brand, I discovered so much about myself, what I was able to do, what my limits were, what my boundaries were. You know, it takes a village. And so if you're someone like me who's stubborn and doesn't know how to do that, I learned how to do that, right? Going outside of your comfort zone and just seeing, like, when the money starts coming in, you're like, oh my God. And you're like, I can do this. And so just allowing yourself that flexibility to grow personally with your business. Because the personal development, like what I've gained personally, is more valuable than any of the money I've ever made through what I do.
Ooh, Delle, that was juicy. That was juicy.
Okay.
I love it. I think that's huge. Like do and grow at the same time.
Yes.
That's the only way. I love it.
Grow.
I love that.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back. Don't wait. Like you're never going to be completely ready, and you're not going to have. There's so much information and so much to learn. You're never going to know it all. You're never going to know it all.
Never.
You're never going to be ready.
Never. And the person that you're comparing yourself to does not even.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Last thing is, where can people find you and book you?
Yes, you can find me at Dele Nguyen on Instagram. Dele Nguyen, basically everywhere. DeleNguyen.com. LearnWithDelle.com. All the Dele Nguyen.
Awesome. I love you so much.
I love you.
Thank you. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you for being so open and transparent with me and all of us here. We appreciate you. We're so proud of you. Like, thank you for just doing what you do, because you're so inspiring. You're way more inspiring than you think you are. And when you walk into a room, you light it up. You do.
Thank you.
So keep being great. I love you so much. And all of you that are watching, thank you so much. I'm so happy you are here as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the Let's Glow show and doing the magic shit that you're doing. You should be on the show next. I love you all so much. Again, my name is Amanda Sweet. I'm the Creative Fairy Godmother, and we'll be back next week with another super dope entrepreneur. See you next week.
Bye.